she was undressing in front of a monster. Not because he forced her, not because she had no choice, because she asked him to. 24 years old, a florist's assistant from Queens, red hair that never quite behaved, steady hands, a heart that had never once broken a promise. And there she stood, highest tower in Manhattan, a room that smelled of dark roses and old blood, slowly, deliberately, slipping the straps from her shoulders. The Vampire King watched her without blinking. 300 years old, crimson eyes, a silence so total it had weight. When he finally stepped forward, fangs bared, mouth brushing the curve of her neck, Lana Harrington did not flinch. She tilted her head and whispered, "Please." Now, before you decide what kind of woman does something like that, let me take you back 48 hours. Because nothing about this story is what it looks like. And everything about it is true. The Crimson Spire rose above Midtown Manhattan like a wound in the skyline. 70 floors of black glass and cold ambition, home to the most powerful vampire lord in the Eastern Hemisphere. His name was Kyle. No last name, no public face, no mercy on record. To the human world, he was a reclusive billionaire, the kind whose name appeared on hospital wings and tax shelters alike. But in the underground that hummed beneath the city's streets, where the shadow economy of blood and elixir changed hands in whispers, Kyle was simply the king. And kings, Lana had learned, did not negotiate. They only accepted, or refused. She was 24, a florist's assistant from Queens, red hair that never quite behaved, a savings account that had taken 3 years to build. The envelope in her coat held every dollar of it. 50,000, tightly banded, slightly damp from her nervous palms. The price of a single vial of crimson elixir, 500,000. She knew the math. She had always been good at math. She came anyway. In her coat pocket, alongside the money, was a photograph. Hetty, her younger sister, 20 years old, laughing in a sunlit park the previous summer, hair loose, head thrown back, completely, impossibly alive. Now Hetty lay in a hospital bed on the 4th floor of Mercy General, her skin slowly losing its warmth to something the doctors called shadow plague, a rare vampiric disease that turned a human body to ash from the inside out. 48 hours, the specialist had said. 48 hours before the disease passed the point of no return. Lana had not slept in 2 days, had not eaten since Tuesday. She had simply done what she always did, gathered everything she had, and showed up. For the first time in years, standing beneath that tower, she felt something she rarely allowed herself to feel. Small. The lobby guard barely glanced at her appointment slip before waving her through. The elevator rose without a sound. When the doors opened on the top floor, the air changed. Warmer than she expected. Heavy. Almost sweet. Like roses left too long in standing water. From across the obsidian hall, a man turned to face her. Tall. Still. Dressed in black so dark it seemed to absorb the light around him. His hair fell past his shoulders like spilled ink. His eyes were the color of deep, living red, and they did not move from her face. Not once. Somewhere to her left, a low voice murmured in a language she didn't know. Kyle raised one hand, silencing the room completely. Then, very slowly, the corner of his mouth curved. Not into a smile, into something far more unsettling than that. Lana's fingers closed around the photograph in her pocket. $50,000, she reminded herself. And a sister who needs to live. She stepped forward. She had no idea that every quiet, ordinary certainty she had ever built was about to change. If you've ever loved someone so deeply you'd walk into the dark for them, this story is for you. Stay with us. He didn't ask her name. That was the first thing Lana noticed. Most men, when they wanted something from a woman, started with her name. Kael simply looked at her, the way you look at something ancient and half-forgotten, something you recognize but cannot place, and said, "Take off your dress and bare your neck." No negotiation, no preamble. The $50,000 sat untouched on the obsidian table between them, a laughable offering he hadn't even glanced at. Lana had made her decision on the elevator ride up. She would not let fear show. She would not give him that. He's a means to an end, she told herself. Hetty needs 48 hours. Give him what he wants. Don't think, don't feel. Just survive this room. She slipped the straps from her shoulders. She tilted her head. When his fangs broke skin, it was nothing like she had imagined. Not brutal, not cold. A pressure, deep and deliberate. And then a warmth spreading from her neck down through her chest. Like the first sip of something you didn't know you needed. She gripped the edge of the table. "Don't," she ordered herself. "Don't you dare feel anything." When he stepped back, his crimson eyes were darker than before, and in them, just for a fraction of a second, was something she couldn't name, something almost like surprise. He pressed a cold vial into her hand. The crimson elixir caught the low light like liquid fire. Then, his mouth still close to her ear, he said quietly, 1,000 years, and I have never tasted a hunter's echo before. Lana walked out, clutching the vial to her chest, fingers pressed against the small wound at her neck. Hunter's echo, she thought, stepping into the cold Manhattan night. What does that mean? She didn't look back. She called Catherine from the hospital parking lot, sitting in her car with the heat off and the windows slowly fogging. "Kath." "Oh no, that's your oh no voice. What happened?" "I just sold my neck to a 300-year-old bloodsucker." A pause. But Hetty can smile again. Silence on the other end. Then, "Lana Marie Harrington, I told you to negotiate first. Did you at least get a receipt?" Despite everything, despite the bite still warm on her skin, despite the fear still sitting like a stone in her stomach, Lana laughed. It came out broken and a little wild, but it was real. "Kath, I don't think vampire kings give receipts." "Then you get a contract, honey. In writing, with witnesses." A pause. Softer. "Are you okay?" Lana looked at the hospital entrance. Through the glass doors, the faint glow of the 4th floor, Hetty's floor. "I will be," she said, "as long as she is." She didn't tell Catherine about the warmth, about the way the fear had almost become something else in those final moments before she walked out. She buried it, the way she buried most things, and went inside to hold her sister's hand. The Saturday summons came like clockwork. Each week, a black car arrived at precisely 9 p.m. Each week, Lana wore the ruby choker Kael had placed around her neck after the signing of the eternal contract. A slim band of gold set with a single dark stone that contained, she was told, a drop of his blood. A tether, Valeth, his cold-eyed lieutenant, had explained, for your protection. Lana had looked at it for a long time before she put it on. Then she put it on. The ceremonies were nothing like the first time. They were slower, more deliberate. The penthouse draped in low candlelight. The city spread 60 floors below like a living thing breathing quietly in the dark. Kyle never spoke much, but he watched her, with a completeness of attention that was, in its own way, more unnerving than the bite itself. The way her breathing shifted, the way her fingers curled, the way she always looked at the window afterward, as if calculating the distance to somewhere safer. He noticed everything. And slowly, against every instruction she had given herself, she began to notice him, too. The way he always positioned himself between her and the door. The night she had felt suddenly feverish mid-ceremony and found herself, hours later, lying on a settee with a cool cloth on her forehead. Kyle sitting 3 feet away in the dark, completely still, watching over her. "You didn't have to stay," she said, voice rough with sleep. "I know," he said. He didn't leave until morning. The memory. It happened on the 4th Saturday. The blood bond had been deepening for weeks. A low hum beneath her skin she had learned to ignore, like a radio playing in another room. But that night, mid-ceremony, something shifted. The hum became a roar, and then she was no longer in the penthouse. She stood in a stone corridor, cold, ancient, torchlit, watching a man she recognized drop to his knees on a floor stained dark with blood. Kyle, unguarded in a way she had never seen him, both hands pressed to the chest of a girl who was not moving, a girl with red hair, fanned out around her like embers dying at the edges. Her face. Lana couldn't see it clearly. It kept shifting, the way a reflection does in disturbed water. But the certainty that arrived with the vision needed no logic to support it. She knew this girl. Kyle was saying something, over and over. His voice broken in a way she had never imagined possible from him. And when the torchlight caught his face, she saw what 3 centuries had never erased. Grief. Pure and absolute and very, very old. She came back to herself, gasping, gripping the arms of the chair, the ruby choker burning warm against her throat. Kyle was already on one knee before her, both hands framing her face, his crimson eyes searching hers with an urgency she had never seen in him. Lana. Not a command, just her name, in a voice that sounded like it had been carrying the weight of it for years. "The girl," she breathed. "The one with the red hair. Who was she?" Something moved across his face. Something she would spend the next week trying to identify. Then he stood, stepped back. The wall came down. Smooth, total, absolute, as it always did when she came too close. "Rest," he said. "The bond is strong tonight." He did not answer. In the car home, Lana pressed her fingers to the choker and stared at the passing lights of the city. He knew that girl, she thought. He grieved her like she was the last thing he ever loved. And she had red hair. She didn't sleep until sunrise. Just when she thought she could begin to trust him. Just when the wall between them had grown thin enough to see through, the past returned. And it wore her face. If this story is pulling at something deep inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear that sacrifice and love are not the same thing. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Not a card, not an email. A single black envelope, sealed in dark wax, slipped beneath the door of her apartment at precisely midnight, as if it had never been carried by human hands at all. Inside, one line in silver ink. "You will attend the midnight masquerade. Friday. Sundown. The Spire. K." Lana stood in her kitchen in her bathrobe and read it 3 times. Then she called Catherine. "He's summoning me to a party now?" "Honey." Catherine's voice was careful, the way it only got when she was trying very hard not to say something alarming. What kind of party? The vampire kind. A long pause. Wear red, Catherine said finally. And don't drink anything you didn't open yourself. The grand hall of the Crimson Spire was a cathedral of black marble and cold chandeliers, every surface catching candlelight and throwing it back until the room seemed to burn from the inside. Hundreds of vampires moved through it like dark water, beautiful and unhurried and ancient, wearing masks of bone and obsidian and hammered silver. Lana wore deep red, the ruby choker at her throat, her hair loose, the way Kyle had once, only once, reached out and touched without asking. She had told herself that meant nothing. She had been telling herself that for 3 weeks. Kyle found her at the edge of the hall. He offered his arm without a word, and she took it the way she had learned to take most things from him, without asking what it cost. For 1 hour, she almost believed this could be something bearable, perhaps even something beautiful. Then Bet Vesper walked in. She arrived on the arm of a man named Malvorian, tall, silver-haired, smiling the way people smile when they already know how something ends. Bet herself was extraordinary, dark-eyed, pale as first frost, wearing a gown the color of a bruise, and looking at Lana the way you look at something you intend to remove. Lana felt it immediately. That particular weight of being assessed and dismissed in the same glance. She had felt it before, from women at the hospital who had looked at her worn coat and looked away. She was practiced at absorbing it. She absorbed it now. What she was not prepared for was Malvorian. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately, and placed one hand on her arm. Not a greeting, a claim. "So this is the blood bride," he said softly. "I see why he chose her."
That hair.
He didn't finish. He didn't need to, because in the next instant, the air dropped 10 degrees. Kyle moved so fast the motion was barely visible. One moment, Malvorian's hand was on her arm. The next, Kyle had him by the collar, lifted with effortless contempt. And the entire hall fell, absolutely, completely silent. "Touch her again," Kyle said, his voice so quiet it carried to every corner of the room. "And I will make you watch your own heart burn." He released him. Malvorian straightened his collar, smiled, and across the hall Betty watched, not with fear, not with anger, but with the patient, cold satisfaction of someone watching a trap spring exactly as designed. He sent her away that same night. Not with cruelty, that almost would have been easier. He simply found her after the gala, still shaken, the choker warm at her throat, and said, with a stillness that felt like a door closing, "The contract is terminated. Valeth will see you out." Lana stared at him. "Kyle." "The elixir supply will continue for Hetty, anonymously. You have my word." "That's not..." She pressed her lips together, tried again. "That's not what I was going to say." He did not answer. He turned away, and Valeth appeared at her elbow, silent, apologetic in the way that stone is apologetic, and walked her to the elevator. The doors closed. The city fell away beneath her. 60 floors, 50, 40. And Lana stood with her hands at her sides, and her heart doing something she had no name for. Later, she would call it grief. At the time, it felt more like erasure, like being handed back every feeling she had tried so hard not to have, and told they had never been wanted. Her apartment felt wrong when she got home. Too quiet, too small. The familiar smell of it, coffee and old paperbacks, suddenly not enough against the memory of dark roses and candlelight. On the counter, a sealed vial of elixir, glowing faintly. She looked at it for a long time, He'll keep his word about Hetty, she thought. He always keeps his word. He was monstrous and methodical and cold, and he always kept his word. She pressed her fingers to the choker, still around her throat. Valeth had not asked for it back. Why had he not asked for it back? She called Catherine. He terminated the contract. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. Silence. Then, Lana, what happened at that party? A man touched my arm. Kyle defended me, in front of everyone, and then he sent me away. More silence. Baby, Catherine said slowly. That is not what someone does when they want to be rid of you. That is what someone does when they are terrified. Lana opened her mouth, closed it. Terrified. She thought of the blood memory, the stone corridor, the red-haired girl, Kyle's hands pressing uselessly against a chest that had stopped moving. She thought of Bet's face at the gala, not jealous, not angry, satisfied. And then, like a key turning in a lock she hadn't known was there, she understood. Bet had planned every moment. The gala, Malvorian's hand on her arm, the public provocation, designed to force Kyle to reveal he cared, and then watch him do the only thing a man like Kyle knew how to do with something precious and endangered. Hide it. Push it away, before someone else could use it against him. Lana set the phone down, pressed both palms flat against the kitchen counter, and in that moment she realized the terrible truth. He had not abandoned her. He had sacrificed her to protect her, and she had walked out of that elevator without once looking back. Some people love by letting go, even when holding on is the only thing that could save them both. If you've ever been pushed away by someone afraid to lose you, keep watching. This story belongs to you. She should have gone home and slept. Instead, she ended up at a bar she had never been to, a narrow place on the Lower East Side where the lighting was bad on purpose and nobody looked at anyone directly. She ordered something she didn't finish and sat with her coat still on, and thought about a stone corridor, a man who had spent 2 centuries protecting people by making himself impossible to love. She thought about Hetty, about how the worst thing she had ever done was convince herself that loving someone quietly and from a distance was the same as keeping them safe. She had learned that from somewhere. She thought about that for a while. Then she paid for her drink and stepped back out into the cold, and didn't make it half a block before the world went dark. She woke in the dark. Not the comfortable dark of her apartment. The dark of a place that had never been meant for living things. Stone floor, cold air, the smell of earth and old iron. Lana opened her eyes slowly, and the first thing she saw was Hetty, pale, wrists bound, slumped against the far wall, but breathing. Breathing. Lana was on her feet before the feeling had fully returned to her legs. Hetty! Her sister's eyes fluttered open. Sis. Her voice was barely a sound. I'm so sorry. I made you sacrifice so much. Stop. Lana dropped to her knees, pressed both hands to her sister's face. Do not apologize to me. Don't you dare! From somewhere above, a laugh. Low. Unhurried, entirely without warmth. Betty descended the stone steps as though she had all the time in the world. Marlene flanked her, silent and watchful. I expected more tears by now, Bet said, tilting her head at Lana with something almost like admiration. What do you want? Lana kept her voice flat, steadier than she felt. Bet smiled. What I have always wanted, the throne, the crown, and the end of the one thing standing between me and both. Kael made a mistake tonight. He showed the entire court that you mattered to him. You are no longer his blood bride, darling. You are his weakness. Malvorian emerged from the shadows. He moved differently here. The composed performance of the gala had fallen away, replaced by something older and colder, like watching a mask come off a face that was never quite human. He crouched before Hetty with clinical curiosity, studying the faint gray tracing the edges of her veins. The elixir, he said softly, was always a temporary measure. I designed it that way. Lana's blood went cold. I engineered the shadow plague, he continued, his tone no different than if he were discussing the weather, to force Kael into the blood bond ritual. A vampire king without a true blood bride is a king approaching his end. Create the right illness, make a desperate young woman seek him out. And when he falls in love, he stood, looked at Lana directly. You take everything he loves, and he has nothing left to fight for. The ruby choker pulsed at her throat, sharp, sudden, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. She pressed her fingers against it. Kael, somewhere above them, through 60 floors of black glass, she felt him. Not a thought, not a sound, a presence, frantic. I told myself for 4 weeks this was a transaction, that I was a means to an end, a warm body with an unusual scent. Nothing more than a remedy purchased at a cost I had agreed to pay. I told myself I felt nothing. I told myself that so many times I almost forgot what feeling nothing actually felt like. He pushed me away to protect me, and I walked out that elevator door without once asking him to reconsider. I will not make that mistake again. 320 years. I have watched everything I loved become a weapon aimed at me. I ended the contract to remove the target from her back. I thought distance was protection. I was wrong about that once before. I buried that mistake in a stone corridor 200 years ago. And now she is in the vault. Because I loved her badly. Because I chose silence over trust. I will not make that choice again. The choker pulsed again, warmer this time, insistent. Lana closed her eyes. She thought of the photograph in her coat pocket. Hetty laughing in a sunlit park, head thrown back, completely alive. She thought of Catherine's voice. That is what someone does when they are terrified. She thought of a stone corridor, hands pressing against a chest that had stopped moving. He has been paying for that loss for 2 centuries. He does not know how to be saved. He only knows how to sacrifice. She opened her eyes, looked at Bet, cold and waiting, and so entirely certain she had already won. And something inside Lana shifted. Not rage, not fear. Something quieter and more permanent than either. Resolve. She rose to her feet. She had made a decision once, on an elevator ride, about the kind of woman she intended to be in that room. She made it again now, in a stone vault far below the city, with her sister at her back, and a man somewhere above her fighting alone through the dark. Because he still believed love meant bearing every burden, so the people he loved never had to know the weight. Not anymore. She pressed her fingers to the choker. Not searching, but answering. And let him feel exactly what she was. Here. Certain. Not leaving. Come find me. And when this is over, we are going to have a conversation about what it means to let someone stay. Across the vault, Bet's expression shifted. Just a fraction. Just enough, for the first time in years. Lana Harrington knew exactly what she had to do. Not for Hetty, not for a contract or a vial of fire. For herself. And for the man who had spent 3 centuries believing he deserved to lose everything he loved. She squared her shoulders, and she waited for the darkness to break open. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone know you are not going anywhere, no matter how hard they push. Stay with us. The most important moment is almost here. She heard him before she saw him. Not footsteps, not a voice. A sound like something ancient and barely contained, tearing through stone and resistance and 3 centuries of grief all at once. The vault doors did not open. They came apart, and Kael walked through what remained. Blood on his hands, his hair loose, his crimson eyes locked on her face like she was the only fixed point in a world that had gone completely dark. The battle still raged somewhere above them. Valeth and the Shadow Guard held the upper passages, but Kael had left all of it. Every tactical calculation, every enemy still standing. The moment her signal reached him through the bond. He crossed the vault floor in 4 strides and stopped. 2 feet away, close enough that she could see the wound in his chest. Deep, dark, seeping at the edges, where something ancient had struck him in the fight. "You're hurt," she said. "Yes," he said. Neither of them moved. Then Lana reached out, slowly, the way you reach toward something you have decided not to fear, and pressed her palm flat against his chest, over the wound, over his heart. He went absolutely still. "I know why you did it," she said quietly. "You pushed me away. You ended the contract. You thought if you made yourself impossible to reach, they couldn't use me to get to you." Something in his face opened, slowly, the way ice gives in early spring, quietly. Then, all at once, "Lana." "Don't apologize," she said. "Just don't do it again." Betty raised the shadow crown. Its energy crackled outward, cold and ancient and reaching. And Lana felt it find Kael through the bond, like a hand closing around something vital. She watched him stagger, watched his knees begin to give, and something rose in her. Not rage, not adrenaline, but something deeper and quieter than either, like a river finally finding the channel it was always meant to run through. Hunter's Echo, he had called it. 1,000 years, and I have never tasted it before. She understood it now. She bit into her own wrist, not with fear, not with hesitation, with the same certainty she had carried into the most dangerous building in Manhattan 5 weeks ago, for the sake of someone she loved. "This is my choice," she said. She pressed her wrist to his lips. Her blood, luminous, ancient in ways she was only beginning to understand, met the darkness in his wound and did not yield to it. It burned gold. The shadow crown shattered. Valeth's shot rang out from the upper passage. Malvorian fell. The vault went silent. Bet was gone. The clan war above had spent itself, like a storm that ran out of sky. Kael sat with his back against the vault wall, Lana beside him, her head resting against his shoulder, his arm around her. Careful, as if he was only just now allowing himself to hold something he had wanted to hold for a long time. Hetty slept across the room, color slowly returning to her face. Valeth stood at the entrance, discreetly not watching, for a long while. Neither of them spoke. Then Kael said, quietly, roughly, like the words had been waiting for years and still weren't sure of their welcome. The girl in the memory. Her name was Elena. She died standing beside me. Because I let her. And I thought love alone would be enough to keep her safe. It wasn't. Lana was quiet. That wasn't your fault, she said. No, he said, but I spent 200 years living as though it was. And the only way I knew how to love anyone after that was from far enough away that I could not lose them. She lifted her head and looked at him. This man, 320 years old, who had bitten a stranger's neck without asking her name, who had kept his word about elixir deliveries in the dark, who had stayed through a fever and said, I know, when he could have left. Looking at her now as though he was only beginning to understand what it felt like to be known by someone who chose to stay. I figured that out, she said softly. He reached up, slowly, the way he had once before, and touched her hair. I am going to need you to teach me, he said, how to stop protecting people by pushing them away. She took his hand, held it. Good thing patience runs in my family, she said. And for the first time in 320 years, Kael laughed. Not the cold, controlled sound of a king. Just a man, tired and grateful and, very carefully, beginning to heal. Later. Catherine arrived at the vault entrance wrapped in Valeth's coat and wearing an expression that contained several strong opinions she was saving for a better moment. She took one look at Lana, sitting in a stone vault holding a vampire king's hand, blood on her wrist, hair in ruins, and burst into tears. You did it, she said, pulling her close. You absolute disaster. You actually did it. I told you I was patient. You told me you were going to negotiate. Across the vault, Hetty stirred. Lana was beside her before her eyes were fully open, kneeling, both hands cupping her sister's face. The same gesture as the beginning, but different now. Not desperate, not bargaining, just present. Hey, Lana whispered. Hetty looked at her, then at Kael, standing quietly across the room, then back at her sister. Did you fall in love with him? She asked. A pause. Possibly, Lana said. Hetty's smile arrived slowly, like sunlight after a long gray winter. Good, she said. You deserve someone who stays. Something settled inside Lana, the way a house settles after a long storm. Not broken, not diminished, just finally at rest. She had walked into the most dangerous building in Manhattan with a photograph pressed against her heart like a prayer. She was walking out with something she hadn't known to ask for, not because the darkness was gone, but because she had stood in it and chosen, and it had chosen her back. 3 days later, Lana stood before the Crimson Spire again. Same black glass tower, same October wind cutting through her coat, same red hair that never quite did what she asked of it. But she was not the woman who had come here the first time, with an envelope of cash and a photograph pressed against her heart. That woman had been bargaining. This one was choosing. Kael met her at the elevator. Not on the obsidian throne, not in the grand hall. Simply there, waiting. The way he had always somehow been waiting in the moments she needed him most, and had not yet known how to say so. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he offered his hand. She took it. The penthouse was the same. Low candlelight, the city breathing 60 floors below. But the ruby choker lay open on the table between them, its clasp unlatched. You don't have to wear it anymore, Kael said. The contract is gone. The debt is gone. Whatever comes next, it comes from your choice alone. Lana looked at the choker for a moment. Then she picked it up and fastened it around her own throat. His eyes, those deep, living crimson eyes, went very still. No bargains, she said. No transactions. This is mine to give, and I'm giving it. He stepped forward. His mouth found her neck. Unhurried now, the way you touch something you intend to keep. And when the warmth spread from the bite down through her chest and into her hands, she did not grip the table. She closed her eyes and let herself feel all of it. Then she drew back, and in a gesture that completed what the bond had always been building toward, she bit him in return, not from a wound, not from desperation, from choice. His blood and hers met between them and burned gold, then silver, then a color she had no name for, and the bond sealed itself, witnessed only by the Manhattan skyline and the quiet dark. And 3 centuries of a man learning, finally, what it felt like to let someone stay. Forever, Kael said against her hair, is no longer a curse. A week later, Hetty sat at Lana's kitchen table, fully healed, pink-cheeked, eating toast, watching her sister arrange a vase of dahlias with the same quiet focus she brought to everything worth caring for. You seem different, Hetty said. I am, Lana said, simply, without drama. Hetty considered this. Good different or scary different? Lana looked at her. This girl she had carried for so long, whose photograph she had pressed to her chest in the lobby of the most dangerous building in Manhattan. Good, she said. Finally, just good. Catherine came on Saturday, as she always did. She brought coffee and absolutely no restraint. So, she said, settling into her kitchen chair like she owned it. The Vampire King. Are we doing this? We're doing this, Lana said. Catherine pointed her cup. He makes you laugh? Once, Lana said. So far. That's enough, Catherine said firmly. One real laugh is more than most people manage in a lifetime. That was the thing Lana kept returning to. In the quiet between appointments, in the moments just before sleep when the mind goes still and shows you what it has actually been holding. It was not the grand gestures that had changed her, not the ceremony, not the bond, not the moment the shadow crown shattered into dark light. It was the small things. A cool cloth on her forehead in a dark room. I know. When he didn't have to stay. Her name. Just her name. Spoken in a voice that had been carrying the weight of it for years. Those were the things that had reached into the place in her chest she had kept carefully locked since she was old enough to understand that loving people sometimes meant losing them, and asked, quietly but without apology, to be let in. One evening near the end of October, Lana stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse, the city below her, Kael's arms around her, his chin resting on the top of her head. 1,000,000 lit windows, 1,000,000 small lives, 1,000,000 quiet decisions between people trying to love each other well enough. Do you regret it? He asked. She considered the question. I regret being afraid for so long, she said. I don't regret a single thing that came after. He held her closer. And then, she felt it. From somewhere deep beneath the city, beneath the stone and the old iron and the roots of things that had been sleeping since before Manhattan had a name. A whisper. Not loud, not urgent, simply present, the way a door sounds when it opens in another room. The hunter has returned. The ancients awaken. Kael went still. His eyes met hers in the reflection of the glass. And for just a moment she saw it there, the old vigilance, rising. "This war," he said quietly, "is only the beginning." She looked at their reflection, her red hair, his dark eyes, the choker catching the city light. And she was not afraid. She finally understood. Love was not the end of the story. It was the thing that gave you the strength to face whatever the story asked of you next. Lana didn't save Kyle with a grand speech. She saved him by showing up. Twice, and refusing to let silence be the final word between them. Most of us have someone we've stopped calling. Not because we stopped caring, but because enough time passed that picking up the phone felt too large. This week, make it small. Text your daughter the name of that song she loved at age 7. Leave a voicemail for your old neighbor, not to say anything important, just to say you were thinking of her on a Tuesday. Set 2 cups out on the counter on Sunday morning, even if you'll drink both yourself. And let that be the small, stubborn act of a heart that has not given up on company. Connection doesn't ask for perfection. It only asks you to reach, just slightly, past the edge of comfortable silence. That is always enough to begin. If this story moved you, if any moment of it felt like something you needed today, leave a comment and tell us which part stayed with you. We read every single one. This video is a work of fiction, created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only. The author is a flesh and blood human who spent hours living alongside these vampire characters. It was a real person who cried, felt fear, and trembled while writing every line. And I merely provided gentle assistance to make the story flow smoother and more captivating.